Dr. Ashley Mackenzie stared at the quantum readings on her holographic display for the 13th time, her heart pounding against her ribs. After 15 years of being dismissed as a crackpot by the scientific community, the numbers finally made sense. Her hands trembled as she swiped through the successful test results. Dr. Mackenzie, her AI assistant's voice broke through her concentration. The United Earth Council is ready for your presentation. Ashley straightened her lab coat and gathered her courage. The council chamber was packed, representatives from every major nation on Earth, along with the sneering Imperial Ambassador Krthak, who hadn't even bothered to hide his disdain for primitive human scientific endeavors. Distinguished council members, Ashley began, her voice steadier than she felt. For centuries, the Galactic Empire has treated Earth as a technological backwater. They've restricted our trade, limited our expansion, and dismissed our scientific achievements. She paused, allowing her gaze to meet Krthak's 4 eyes. Today that changes. With practiced precision, she placed her coffee mug on the quantum demonstration pad. The familiar scent of Colombian roast wafted through the air as she activated her device. The mug's atoms shimmered, and then, to audible gasps from the audience, passed straight through the solid titanium desk beneath. "What you're seeing is selective quantum filtration," Ashley explained, her confidence growing as she watched Krthak's facial tentacles twist in confusion. "We can now choose which matter passes through specific quantum barriers based on its fundamental signature." The Imperial Ambassador's translator squawked as he interrupted. "Impossible. Your species barely understands basic FTL principles. This is clearly some primitive holographic trick." Ashley smiled and expanded the demonstration field. Krthak's ceremonial staff clattered to the ground, passing through his suddenly permeable hands. The ambassador jumped back, his grey skin flushing purple with rage or embarrassment. Ashley wasn't sure which. "The implications are revolutionary," she continued, hiding her satisfaction. "We can create a barrier around our entire solar system that selectively filters faster than light travel. Only ships with approved quantum signatures will be able to pass." Council President Chen leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we could block Imperial ships while allowing free trade with other species?" "Precisely." Ashley projected a larger simulation showing the solar system. "We've already begun installing the generator network. The barrier can be activated within 24 hours. Krthak's translator struggled to keep up with his rapid-fire clicking. "This is an act of rebellion. The Empire will not stand for." "The Empire," President Chen cut in, "has no say in how Earth protects its sovereign territory. Dr. Mackenzie, you have the Council's authorization. Activate the barrier." Ashley's team worked through the night, coordinating with satellite stations and lunar bases. As dawn broke over Houston Space Center, she received the final confirmation. The network was ready. The barrier's activation was anticlimactic. No visual effects, no dramatic energy surge. Just a subtle shift in quantum readings across their instruments. They didn't have to wait long for results. "Doctor," her assistant called out. "Imperial freighter approaching at FTL speeds. Impact in 3-2. The massive cargo ship hit the barrier at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. It didn't crash or explode. It simply stopped, its FTL field dissipating like morning mist." Through the live feed, Ashley watched the ship's futile attempts to reactivate its drive. Her quantum communicator crackled with Krthak's voice, no longer dismissive but tightly controlled. "The Empire demands you deactivate this obstruction immediately." Ashley checked the readings one final time before responding. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Ambassador. Earth's borders are now closed to Imperial traffic. Perhaps you should have taken our science more seriously. As alerts began pouring in about more Imperial ships failing to enter the system, Ashley allowed herself a small smile. The Empire had always treated Earth's technological inefficiency as a weakness. They never understood that humanity's chaotic, multi-branched approach to scientific discovery was actually their greatest strength. The real question now was, how would the Empire respond? Commander Jake Sullivan didn't like coincidences. 20 years in Earth defense had taught him they usually weren't coincidences at all. So when 3 separate cleaning crews tried to access Dr. Mackenzie's lab in the same hour, his instincts screamed trap. Martinez, lockdown sublevel 3, he ordered through his neural comm. Quietly, I don't want our guest knowing we're on to them. The security feeds showed a lanky janitor pushing his cart toward the quantum research wing. Everything about him looked perfect. The wrinkled uniform, the slight slouch, even the coffee stain on his sleeve. Too perfect. Jake checked his pulse pistol and moved into position. The janitor had already bypassed 2 security checkpoints using flawless credentials. Whoever this Imperial spy was, they were good. The infiltrator reached the lab's main door, swiping his forged keycard. Jake waited until he was fully committed to the motion before stepping out of the shadows. You know what's interesting about that badge? Jake kept his tone conversational. The real Marcus Jensen is currently on a beach in Hawaii. I just got off the phone with him. The spy's reaction was instant and inhuman. He dropped the janitor disguise, literally, as his holoprojector failed, revealing the distinctive purple-grey skin and vertical pupils of a Zaxtal elite operative. Before Jake could squeeze his trigger, the alien had already flipped backwards, adhesive pads on his fingers letting him cling to the ceiling. Human. The Imperial agent's voice was surprisingly melodic. Your species continues to surprise us. Jake dove behind a support column as a neural disruptor beam crackled past his head. We get that a lot. I'm guessing you're here for Dr. Mackenzie's research. Major Zaxtal of Imperial Intelligence, the spy said, scuttling across the ceiling like a purple gecko. And no, Commander Sullivan, I already have the research. Jake's blood ran cold. How at he? The ventilation shaft above him exploded outward as Martinez and his tactical team burst in, filling the corridor with suppression foam. Major Zaxtal tried to dodge, but the expanding foam caught his leg. His momentum carried him face first into a wall with a satisfying crunch. Actually, Jake approached the now restrained spy. You have what we wanted you to find. He pulled a Deta crystal from the Major's belt. Dr. Mackenzie's been feeding disinformation through our networks for weeks. We knew the Empire would send someone. The Major's expression remained neutral, but a slight twitch of his head tendrils betrayed his surprise. Clever, but it changes nothing. The Empire will not tolerate this barrier. Even now, our dreadnoughts gather. You've started a war you cannot win. Jake knelt beside the captured spy. That's what interests me, Major. Why does a simple border protection system frighten the Empire so much? Frighten. Zaxtal laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. The Empire doesn't fear primitives who barely. He stopped, realizing his mistake too late. There it is. Jake smiled. You're not here because we're weak. You're here because Dr. Mackenzie stumbled onto something that threatens Imperial power at a fundamental level. Something about your FTL technology. The Major's silence was all the confirmation he needed. Later, in the interrogation chamber, Zaxtal finally broke. The Empire's entire FTL network relied on standardized quantum signatures, a feature they'd forced on all their subject worlds to maintain control. Earth's inefficient development of alternative systems had led them to discover this vulnerability. "Sir, Martine has handed Jake a priority message. Long-range sensors just picked up Imperial fleet movements. Massive ones." Jake read the report, his jaw tightening. 50 dreadnoughts, gathering just beyond Neptune's orbit. The Empire was done playing games. "Have Dr. Mackenzie's team reinforce the barrier." He looked at their captured spy, who seemed almost pitying. "And Major, thank you for confirming our theory about Imperial FTL signatures. It'll make calibrating our defenses much easier." For the first time, he saw real fear in those vertical pupils. The Empire had underestimated humanity for the last time. The question was, would Earth's barrier hold against what was coming? Technical Sergeant Madison Cooper's fingers flew across the holographic controls as another impact rocked the barrier control station. Warning lights flashed across her console, red, yellow, red. A symphony of system failures waiting to happen. "Status report." Her voice carried over the chaos of the command center, buried 2 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. 50 Imperial dreadnoughts firing in synchronized patterns. Lieutenant Park's voice cracked with strain. "They're trying to overload the barrier at multiple points simultaneously." Madison watched the paragraphs spike dangerously. The Empire had figured out that while their ships couldn't penetrate the barrier, their weapons could still hammer it. Each impact drained more power from Earth's already strained grid. "Rerouting power from European fusion plants," she announced, her augmented reality display showing the complex energy flows. "Asian grid is already at 97% capacity." Another blast sequence hit. This time, several monitors exploded in showers of sparks. Through the emergency lighting, Madison saw the main power coupling beginning to melt. "Ma'am." Park pointed to a terrifying new alert. "Barrier integrity dropping at Section 7. If they breach there." "They won't." Madison grabbed her toolkit and ran for the maintenance shaft. The barrier couldn't fail. Not now. Not after everything they'd sacrificed to build it. The maintenance tunnels were a maze of quantum conduits and power cables. Heat from overtaxed systems made the air shimmer. Madison's augmented display showed her the fastest route to the critical junction, but what she saw there made her heart stop. The main quantum regulator was failing. Without it, the entire barrier would collapse in minutes. "Control, I need options." She opened the junction box, immediately recoiling from the heat. Dr. Mackenzie's voice came through her comm. "The regulator can't handle the power load. We designed it for sustained pressure, not this kind of concentrated assault." Madison watched the energy readings climb higher. The Empire wasn't just trying to break through. They were trying to destroy Earth's entire defensive infrastructure. Another impact sequence began, and emergency sirens blared throughout the facility. "Total barrier failure in 4 minutes," the AI announced calmly. Madison stared at the failing regulator, then at the massive power conduits surrounding her. A crazy idea formed. "Dr. Mackenzie, the barrier works by filtering quantum signatures, right? Could it run if we bypassed the regulator entirely?" "Theoretically, yes, but the raw power would." The scientist gasped, realizing what Madison was suggesting. "No, the human nervous system can't handle that kind of load. You'll die." Madison was already pulling cables loose, but it would work. Silence. Then yes, for about 30 seconds. Long enough to either save us or... Better than watching the Empire roll in. Madison took a deep breath. Lieutenant Park, on my mark, divert all power through junction 7 Alpha. Sarge, that junction is you. I know. She plugged the first cable into her neural interface port. Her augmented reality display flickered as her implants registered the connection. Ready. The next impact sequence struck. Warning klaxons screamed about imminent barrier collapse. Mark. Raw power flooded through Madison's nervous system. Every cell in her body felt like it was on fire. Through the haze of agony, she forced her consciousness to merge with the barrier's quantum field. She could feel the Imperial weapons trying to tear through, each impact a hammer blow against her very being. But she held. Somehow she held. Through dimming vision, she saw her display register the impossible, barrier integrity rising. The Empire's synchronized attack faltered as their energy weapons proved useless against the newly strengthened quantum field. Barrier holding. Park's voice seemed to come from very far away. My God, it's actually pushing their ships back. Madison smiled, though she couldn't feel her face anymore. The Empire had miscalculated again, assuming their overwhelming force would triumph over human ingenuity and sacrifice. As consciousness faded, she saw the Imperial ships beginning to retreat. Her last thought was a silent challenge to the Empire. This is how far we'll go to remain free. How far are you willing to go to stop us? Then darkness took her, and the barrier shimmered strong across the solar system. Rayan Martinez slouched at the grimy bar on Proxima Centauri IOA, looking every bit the burned-out merchant he pretended to be. His cybernetic eye, disguised as a drunken's lazy stare, scanned the crowd with military precision. Imperial informants were everywhere these days. Another Centaurian whiskey, he slurred to the 6-armed bartender, while his neural implant filtered out the alcohol. The real cargo was hidden in the ice cubes, quantum-encrypted data crystals containing Earth's barrier specifications. A hooded figure sat beside him. The flames burn brightest at midnight. The contact phrase. But dawn comes either way. Ryan responded, not looking at his contact. Professor Lixta, a leading physicist from the Proximum Resistance. Our people had suffered under Imperial rule for centuries. The Empire's choking us with new trade restrictions, she whispered. They're afraid more worlds will follow Earth's example. Ryan's cybernetic eye caught movement at the door. 3 Imperial security officers trying too hard to look casual. We've got company. Back entrance, 2 minutes. He stumbled theatrically toward the restrooms, bumping into tables to mask his placement of micro-EMP charges. The professors followed moments later. The EMPs detonated just as the Imperial officers moved in, frying their neural nets and plunging the bar into chaos. Ryan and Lixta slipped out through the kitchen during the confusion. The specifications, she said once they reached the safe house. They're complete. Ryan extracted the data crystals from the now melted ice cubes. Everything you need to replicate Earth's barrier. But you'll have to modify the quantum signatures. The Empire's already trying to adapt there. Pain exploded in his shoulder. A neural disruptor blast. Ryan dove behind a storage crate, drawing his pulse pistol. Professor Lixta hadn't moved. I'm sorry, she said, tears in her compound eyes. They have my clutch mates. Imperial troops crashed through the windows. Ryan's cybernetic eye highlighted 7 targets, but his combat software calculated 0 survival scenarios if he fought. Commander Martinez of Earth Intelligence, a smooth voice cut through the chaos. The famous ghost in the market lanes. I am Inquisitor Dax. The Imperial officer stepped forward, his ceremonial armor gleaming. Did you really think we wouldn't notice the pattern of barrier technologies spreading along your trade routes? Ryan's mind raced. The Empire shouldn't have known his roots, unless someone on Earth is feeding you information, he said, pieces clicking into place. Someone high up. Surrender now, Dax offered, and I'll let you live long enough to learn who. Ryan smiled. Counter-offer. He pressed a hidden button on his cybernetic eye. You get to explain to your superiors how you lost an entire weapons cache. The storage crates around them clicked. Imperial weapon signatures activated, sending the facility into automatic lockdown. Blast doors slammed shut, separating Ryan from his captors. Those are Imperial weapons. Dax raged through the barrier. How did you? I'm not really a weapons dealer, Ryan said, backing toward his escape route. But the Empire's own protocols make great security systems. Professor, get your people clear. This place burns in 2 minutes. He didn't wait for a response. The underground tunnel let into his hidden shuttle, pre-programmed for a randomized FTL jump. As he breached atmosphere, his sensors caught the massive explosion that would destroy any evidence of his operation. But the close call haunted him. The Empire had known too much. Someone on Earth was betraying them, someone with access to classified intelligence. He queued up a quantum-encrypted message to Earth Defense Command. Operation compromised. Multiple barrier seeds delivered, but Empire tracking patterns. High-level security breach suspected. Request immediate extraction and Level 1 counterintelligence sweep. As his ship jumped to FTL, Ryan reviewed the mission data. The Empire was adapting faster than expected, but they still didn't have the full picture. Earth's barrier technology was spreading, world by world, through the galaxy's shadow markets and resistance networks. The real question was, who on Earth wanted to stop it? Admiral Emily Winters watched Earth shrink in her viewport as her flagship, the EDS Defiant, led the patrol fleet past lunar orbit. The neural interface in her command chair fed her real-time updates from every ship, but one alert demanded her attention. Director Thomas Pierce requesting emergency communication. Her mentor, the man who'd shaped her career from Academy Cadet to Fleet Admiral. The man who, according to Ryan Martinez's intelligence, was selling Earth's secrets to the Empire. Put him through, she ordered, keeping her voice steady. The holographic display materialized Pierce's weathered face, as familiar as her own father's. Emily. His smile carried decades of shared victories. Your patrol fleet is off course. Mars sector shows unusual quantum fluctuations. I'm transmitting coordinates now. Negative, Director. Emily's fingers tightened on her armrests. Those fluctuations are fake, just like the last 3 emergency deployments that scattered our defenses. Pierce's smile faded. You've been talking to Martinez. He's not the only one. Quantum signature analysis of Imperial attacks matches classified Earth defense frequencies. Frequencies only you had access to. She leaned forward. Why, Thomas? After everything we fought for. Because I've seen this before. Pierce's facade cracked. The Arcturian rebellion. The Centaurian uprising. Every species that challenged the Empire ended up destroyed. I'm trying to save us. Emergency alerts flashed across Emily's neural feed. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Pierce's loyalist faction emerging behind her fleet. By selling us out, Emily opened a secure channel to her combat eye. The barrier works. We can win. The barrier is precisely the problem. Pierce's voice hardened. Earth isn't ready for that kind of power. The Empire maintains order, structure, Without it, we'll have chaos. Emily watched his fleet move into attack formation. Ships she'd trained with. Crews she'd commanded. Stand down, Thomas. Please. I've already transmitted the barrier's quantum frequency to Imperial Command. When this is over, Earth will accept its proper place in the Empire. His eyes softened. I taught you everything you know, Emily. Don't throw your life away. Emily smiled sadly. Not everything. She killed the transmission and activated her neural command link. All ships, execute Protocol 0. Authorization Winters, Alpha 70. Her fleet's quantum signatures shifted instantly. A trick she'd developed but never shared with Pierce. His opening salvo passed harmlessly through their ships. Ready antimatter warheads, she ordered. Target their engines only. These are still our people. The battle above Mars erupted like a new sun. Pierce's ships had superior numbers, but Emily's fleet moved with impossible coordination through her neural network. She'd learned deception from Pierce, but innovation, that was pure humanity. Admiral. Her tactical officer's voice cut through the battle link. Director Pierce's flagship is powering up its main gun. Energy readings are off the charts. Emily saw it through multiple sensor feeds. Pierce had modified his ship with Imperial tech. The weapon could crack Mars in half. You taught me to always have a backup plan, Thomas, she whispered, activating her final countermeasure. Hidden quantum resonators around Mars's orbit activated, creating a localized version of Earth's barrier. Pierce's weapon fired, and the energy rebounded, catching his entire fleet in a cascade of quantum feedback. Emily watched her mentor's ships go dark, disabled but not destroyed. All ships, move in. Prepare for boarding operations. Hours later, she stood in Pierce's cabin as security led him away. On his desk, she found a quantum recorder with a message for her. I hope you prove me wrong, Emily, his recorded voice said. But power like this? It changes people, changes worlds. The Empire might be brutal, but it's stable. What we're doing, we're rewriting the laws of reality itself. Are we ready for that responsibility? Emily stared out at Mars, where recovery ships were towing in Pierce's disabled fleet. Her mentor's words haunted her, but humanity had already chosen its path. She opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Traitor secured. Pierce's faction contained. But the Empire knows our quantum frequencies now. We need to adapt the barrier before they return. The real war, she knew, was just beginning. Dr. Olivia Davidson had faced tough crowds before, but having 4 different species threatening nuclear war with each other in the same conference room was a new challenge. The Arcturian ambassador's chromatophores flashed angry red patterns, while the Centaurian delegate's antennae vibrated with barely contained rage. The Centaurians have stolen our barrier frequencies. Ambassador Klax's translator barely kept up with his color-based language. 3 of our trading vessels were blocked from entering our own system. Lies. The Centaurian delegate's wings buzzed. Your ships were carrying Imperial weapon signatures. We checked. Olivia took a deep breath, watching centuries of hatred threaten to destroy Earth's coalition before it began. The Empire had planned this perfectly, turning potential allies against each other by exploiting their quantum barrier technology. Both of you are right, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The universal translators embedded in the chamber walls carried her words to each species in their native language. And you're both being played. She gestured, and the holographic display showed a complex quantum signature analysis. These are Imperial pseudo-signatures, designed to mimic both your species' standard configurations. They wanted this exact reaction. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. An alert flashed across Olivia's neural feed. Imperial ships approaching the neutral station where they'd gathered. Right on schedule. In about 3 minutes, she continued calmly, an Imperial peacekeeping fleet will arrive, offering to mediate this conflict. They'll propose a solution, standardized Imperial quantum signatures for all ships, to prevent further confusion. The Arcturians' colours shifted to surprise purple. How could you know? Because they tried the same thing with Earth. Olivia activated her second display, showing the station's defensive systems coming online. The Empire doesn't want us fighting each other. They want us dependent on their technology, their standards, their control. Warning klaxons blared. The Imperial fleet had arrived early, 15 dreadnoughts dropping out of FTL, weapons charged. Your species must submit to Imperial regulation. The Admiral's transmission boomed through the chamber. For peace, for order. Olivia smiled. Counter-proposal. She sent the signal. Hidden quantum generators activated around the station, creating a localized barrier network. But this was different from Earth's original design. It incorporated elements from Arcturian color-based computing, Centaurian bioquantum mechanics, and 3 other species' unique innovations. The Imperial ships didn't just bounce off. Their engines began to fail, their weapons systems crashing as the combined barrier technology overwhelmed their standardized systems. This is what they fear, Olivia told the stunned delegates. Not our individual technologies, but what happens when we work together. When we combine our different approaches instead of accepting their one-size-fits-all solution. The Arcturian ambassador's colours swirled thoughtfully. You deliberately let us fight, to show us. To show you that our differences are our strength. She gestured to the now paralyzed Imperial fleet. Their entire empire is built on standardization, conformity, control. But look what we just accomplished by combining 5 different species' quantum theories. The Centaurian delegate's antennae twitched with amusement. The barrier is stronger than ever. This is just the beginning. Olivia brought up new schematics. Each of our species approaches quantum mechanics differently. Imagine what we could accomplish by embracing those differences instead of fighting over them. As the delegates began excitedly discussing collaboration, Olivia's neural feed crackled with a priority message from Earth. Director Pierce's intelligence had been correct. The Empire was deploying something new, something that could tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. She looked at the newly united coalition members, knowing humanity would need every one of them for what was coming. There's something else you need to see, she said, pulling out the classified data. The Empire's built a super weapon, and stopping it will require everything we've learned today about working together. The real test of their coalition was about to begin. Colonel Derek Harrison floated in zero gravity, watching the Imperial superweapon through his ship's quantum-shielded viewport. The massive construct looked like a mechanical kraken, its dozen appendages crackling with reality-warping energy that made his eyes hurt. Remind me why we can't just blow it up. Lieutenant Sarah Chen's voice crackled through their secure comm channel. Their stealth ship, barely larger than a shuttle, hung in the vessel's massive shadow. Because Derek checked his experimental phase shift suit's readings. A conventional attack would trigger a quantum cascade. Half the galaxy would collapse into a singularity. The intelligence from their coalition allies had been clear. The Empire's weapon didn't just break through barriers, it unraveled the quantum foundations of space-time itself. One shot could delete Earth from existence. Team, synchronize phase shift frequencies, Derek ordered. The 5 members of his Special Operations Squad adjusted their suits' quantum harmonics. Remember, we've got one shot at this. The suits will only hold their phase state for 20 minutes. They'd stolen the phase shift technology from an Imperial black site. Ironic that humanity's greatest weapon against the Empire was their own classified research. The suits would let them walk through solid matter, but one misalignment would scatter their atoms across space-time. Breach point in 3, 2, 1 shift. Derek activated his suit. Reality blurred as his quantum signature shifted out of normal space-time. He led his team straight through the superweapon's outer hull, their bodies passing through metal and energy fields like ghosts. Inside, they encountered their first surprise. The corridors were empty. No crew. Sarah's concern matched his own. That's impossible. A weapon this size. It's automated, Derek realized, checking his quantum scanner. The whole ship is one giant eye. That's why our coalition spies couldn't find any construction crews. They moved deeper into the weapon's core, passing through walls and security barriers. Derek's scanner picked up increasing energy readings and something else, something wrong. Colonel, their quantum physicist, Dr. Rodriguez, called out. These readings, the weapon isn't just breaking quantum barriers. It's creating new laws of physics. Derek stopped at an intersection of pulsing energy conduits. Explain. The Empire isn't trying to destroy worlds. Rodriguez's voice shook. They're trying to rewrite reality itself. Make it impossible for any technology to work except theirs. The implications hit Derek like a physical blow. This wasn't just about Earth or the Coalition. The Empire meant to make their domination a fundamental law of the universe. Alarms suddenly blared. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors. Phase shift detected, an artificial voice announced. Countermeasures engaged. The air itself seemed to thicken. Derek felt his suit's phase state fluctuating. They predicted this, he grunted, fighting to maintain cohesion. The weapon's changing local physics to trap us. 15 minutes until permanent phase lock, Sarah reported. We'll be stuck between states forever. Derek made a decision. New plan. Rodriguez, those energy conduits, they're connected to the reality warping core. Yes, but... The physicist's eyes widened. Colonel, if we overload them, the quantum cascade will be contained in this ship's phase-shifted space. Derek was already pulling quantum charges from his pack. The Empire built this weapon to exist slightly out of normal space-time. If we detonate it here, the destruction would be trapped in a quantum bubble, Rodriguez finished. But someone would have to manually trigger it. The phase suits won't last long enough for a timer. Derek handed command codes to Sarah. Get the team out. That's an order. Colonel, humanity's greatest strength? He managed a smile. We're really good at breaking things, including laws of physics. Now go. He watched his team phase reluctantly through the hull, then turned to the energy core. The Empire had tried to make their dominance into a universal constant. They forgot that humanity's whole history was about defying the impossible. As reality warped around him, Derek armed the charges. His suit's phase state was failing, but he only needed a few more seconds. Let's see you standardize this, he told the Empire's ultimate weapon and pressed the detonator. The universe held its breath. Dr. Ashley Mackenzie's hands hovered over the quantum manifold controls aboard the International Space Station. Colonel Harrison's sacrifice had bought them time, trapping the Empire's reality-warping weapon in a bubble of twisted space-time. But the Empire was already building another. Multiple Imperial fleets converging, Lieutenant Park's voice came through the station's comm. They're not just attacking Earth this time. They're hitting every coalition world simultaneously. Through the station's viewport, Ashley watched the barrier ripple under concentrated fire. The Empire had learned. They were using reversed-engineered quantum technology from Director Pierce's leaked data. Coalition status, she asked, watching energy readings spike dangerously. Arcturians holding. Centaurians barrier failing. Earth's grid at 92% capacity. Park paused. Dr. Mackenzie, we're receiving a transmission. It's the Imperial Grand Admiral. A hologram materialized, a towering figure in ceremonial armor. Dr. Mackenzie, the architect of this rebellion. His translator rendered his clicks and whistles into perfect English. Your barrier technology has caused enough chaos. Surrender now, accept Imperial standardization, and your species will be spared. Ashley looked at the device she'd spent the last week building. A quantum resonance cascade initiator, capable of permanently altering the underlying fabric of space-time throughout the galaxy. It could prevent the Empire from ever building another reality-warping weapon. It would also limit humanity's own future technological development in ways they couldn't predict. The Empire brings order, the Admiral continued. Structure. Progress through controlled innovation. Your species' chaotic approach threatens everything. Ashley thought of Madison Cooper sacrificing herself to power the barrier, of Ryan Martinez spreading hope through underground networks, of Emily Winters facing down her own mentor to protect Earth's freedom, of Derek Harrison trapped forever in phase-shifted space to save them all. You know what your mistake was? She asked the Admiral. You thought our chaotic approach was a weakness, that standardization equals strength. She began the activation sequence. But chaos. Chaos is how the universe creates new things. It's how life itself began. Warning klaxons blared as her device powered up. The station's AI announced, "Warning. Quantum resonance cascade will permanently alter space-time constants in local galaxy. All existing barriers and FTL systems will require recalibration." You'll cripple your own technology, the Admiral warned. Everything you've built. We'll adapt, change, evolve. Ashley smiled. That's what we do best. She pressed the final sequence. Throughout the galaxy, space-time itself shuddered. Imperial ships fell out of FTL as their standardized systems failed. But Earth's barrier, built on principles of change and adaptation, transformed with the new physics. Coalition ships report successful recalibration, Park announced. Imperial fleets, their entire network is down. The Admiral's hologram flickered. What have you done? Created something new, Ashley replied. A galaxy where no one can enforce standardization because the underlying physics won't allow it. Where adaptation and diversity aren't just advantages, they're necessities. She watched the Imperial ships retreat, their mighty weapons useless in this new reality. Earth's coalition partners were already sharing techniques for adapting to the changed constants, each species approaching the challenge differently. The Empire will return, the Admiral promised before his hologram failed. Maybe. Ashley looked at the quantum readings. A new universe of possibilities unfolding. But you'll have to learn to adapt first, to embrace chaos and change, just like we did. Hours later, she stood in the station's observation dome, watching the altered barrier shimmer with new colors. Humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from superior firepower or better technology. It had come from their willingness to change everything, including the laws of physics themselves, to remain free. The barrier was no longer just a wall. It was a symbol of what humanity had taught the galaxy. True civilization meant respecting differences. True strength came from adaptation, not standardization. And sometimes the only way to preserve freedom was to change the very rules of reality. As reports came in of imperial worlds requesting coalition membership, Ashley smiled. The Empire had wanted to make their control a universal constant. Instead, they had made change itself the only constant that mattered.